Some nights survival isn't about money. It's about making it home alive. Lena Hart thought the hardest part of her night would be coaxing applause from an empty bar. She was wrong. One rejection, one powerful man's bruised ego. And suddenly, the streets of New Orleans became a hunting ground. What follows is a story of violence that breaks, protection that binds, and a voice that refuses to stay silent. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And hit that like button. Now, let's begin. Part 1. The stage lights at the Crescent Room were dying, same as everything else in that place. Lena Hart stood under the single working spotlight, her fingers wrapped around a microphone that had seen better decades, and sang to a crowd of 11 people. Maybe 12 if you counted the guy passed out in the corner booth. The burgundy velvet curtains behind her were rotting at the edges, the paint on the walls peeling like sunburned skin, and somewhere in the back, a pipe dripped water into a bucket with metronomic precision. Drip, drip, drip. But when Lena sang, none of that mattered. Her voice rolled through the room like smoke, low, textured, carrying weight that didn't match her 26 years. She wasn't technically perfect. Her breath control slipped on the long notes, and she went sharp on the bridge. But there was something raw in it. Something that made the bartender stop wiping glasses. Something that made the old man in the second row close his eyes and sway. She finished the song, a blues number about leaving and never looking back, and the applause came thin and scattered. A few bills landed in the tip jar by the piano. Lena smiled, nodded, and stepped off the small wooden platform that passed for a stage. "Beautiful, baby. Real beautiful." The voice came from her left. Lena didn't need to turn to know who it was. Marcus Thibault. He sat at the bar now, though he'd been at a table near the back during her set. Mid-50s, silver hair slicked back, wearing a suit that cost more than Lena made in 6 months. He owned half the commercial real estate in the Garden District and had a smile that never reached his eyes. Lena had seen him here before. He always sat alone, always watched her. "Thank you," she said, her tone flat, professional. She moved toward the bar to collect her tips. Marcus swiveled on his stool, blocking her path just slightly. Not aggressive, just present. "You got a real gift," he said. "Shame you're wasting it in a place like this." "I like this place." "You like singing for drunks and ghosts?" Lena met his eyes. "I like singing." He chuckled, low and indulgent, like she'd said something charmingly naive. "I got a spot opening up at one of my properties. Uptown, real stage, real crowd, real money." He leaned in, just a fraction. "You interested?" "I'm good here." "You sure? 'Cause from where I'm sitting, you look like you could use a break." Lena's jaw tightened. She knew the game. She'd seen it 100 times in 100 bars. The offer was never just an offer. "I appreciate it," she said carefully, "but I'm not looking to move right now." Marcus's smile thinned. "That's a shame." He reached out, his hand hovering near her wrist, not touching, but close enough to make the intention clear. "Think about it," he said softly. "A woman like you shouldn't have to struggle." Lena stepped back. "I'm not struggling." The warmth in his expression flickered. For just a second, something colder showed through. "All right," Marcus said, his voice still smooth but edged now. "Your loss, baby." He stood, dropped a $100 bill on the bar, and walked out. Lena exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking. "You okay?" She turned. Corey, the bartender, was watching her with concern. He was older, 60s, with kind eyes and a scar across his knuckles from a life he didn't talk about. "Yeah," Lena said. "I'm fine." "That guy's bad news." "I know." "You need me to walk you to your car?" Lena shook her head. "I'm parked right outside. I'll be okay." Corey didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Lena collected the cash from the tip jar, $63, enough to cover groceries if she stretched it, and grabbed her coat from the back room. The Crescent Room emptied out fast after midnight. By the time she stepped into the alley behind the bar, the street was quiet. Too quiet. New Orleans was never truly silent, but this corner of the Marigny felt hollowed out tonight. The streetlights flickered. A cat yowled somewhere in the dark. Lena's car, a rusted-out Honda Civic with a dented bumper, sat under a broken lamp halfway down the block. She walked quickly, keys already in her hand. Footsteps. Behind her. Lena's heart kicked. She didn't turn around, she walked faster. The footsteps matched her pace. Hey! The voice was unfamiliar, male, young. Lena's fingers tightened around her keys. She was 10 feet from her car. I said, hey. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Lena spun, and the man was right there, early 20s, thin, with a patchy beard and eyes that looked wrong, glassy, unfocused. Let go, Lena said, her voice sharp. Relax, the man said, grinning. Just want to talk. I don't. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Another figure moved out of the shadows behind him, bigger, older, wearing a jacket with the collar turned up. Lena's stomach dropped. Mr. Thibault says hi, the older man said. That's when she ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just bolted. Her heel caught on the cracked pavement and she stumbled, but she didn't fall. She made it 3 steps before someone slammed into her from behind. Lena hit the ground hard. The asphalt tore open her palms. Her head cracked against the curb, and the world tilted, colors smearing. Stupid bitch, someone muttered. A boot caught her in the ribs. Lena curled inward, gasping, trying to protect her stomach, her face. Another kick. Another. Pain exploded in her side, her back, her shoulder. She tried to scream, but the sound came out broken. Should have taken the offer, the older man said. One of them grabbed her hair, yanking her head back. Lena's vision blurred. She saw the streetlight above, spinning, flickering. She tasted blood. Then she heard the voice, low, calm, cold. Let her go. The hands released her. Lena collapsed forward, her cheek pressed against the filthy pavement. She couldn't see who had spoken, couldn't see anything except the blur of shapes moving above her. Who the hell are you? One of the men demanded. Leave. This isn't your business. I'm making it my business. There was a pause. Lena heard breathing, footsteps. Then someone laughed, nervous, forced. Man, we don't want trouble. We're just... The sound of impact cut him off. A wet crunch. A body hitting the ground. Lena's vision swam. She heard shouting, running, a car door slamming, tires screeching, then silence. Someone knelt beside her. Can you hear me? The voice was the same one from before, deep, steady, no panic in it. Lena tried to answer, but her mouth wouldn't work. Everything hurt. She couldn't breathe right. I'm going to pick you up, the voice said. Don't fight me. Strong hands slid under her shoulders, her knees. Lena was lifted, weightless, the world tilting again. She wanted to tell him to stop, to put her down, but the words wouldn't come. She felt warmth, the smell of expensive fabric, the steady rhythm of someone walking. Stay with me, the voice said. Lena's eyes fluttered shut. Well, when she woke, the first thing she noticed was the softness, not the rough sheets of her studio apartment, not the lumpy couch she sometimes passed out on after late shifts. This was different. High thread count different. The kind of softness that came with money. Lena opened her eyes. She was in a bed. A huge bed. The room around her was dim, lit only by a lamp on a side table. Dark walls. Minimalist furniture. A window showing the glow of the city outside. Her body ached everywhere. Her ribs screamed when she tried to sit up. Her head throbbed. Don't move. Lena froze. A man sat in a chair near the window. He was half in shadow, but she could make out the shape of him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing. His face was angled away from her, looking out at the city. Where am I? Lena's voice came out hoarse. Safe. That's not an answer. The man turned his head slightly. Even in the low light, Lena could see the sharpness of his features, strong jaw, high cheekbones, eyes that looked black in the darkness. You're in my home, he said. You were hurt. I brought you here. Who are you? Adrian Cross. The name hit her like cold water. Everyone in New Orleans knew that name. Adrian Cross owned the Crescent Room. He also owned 3 other clubs, 2 restaurants, and a half-dozen properties scattered across the city. Rumor said he had ties to people you didn't ask questions about. Rumor said he'd come from nothing and built an empire through methods that didn't appear in business textbooks. Rumor said a lot of things. Why did you help me? Lena asked. Adrian was quiet for a moment. You work for me. I work at a bar you own. That's not the same thing. It is to me. Lena tried to process that. Her head felt stuffed with cotton. Those men, they won't bother you again. How do you know? Because I made sure of it. There was something in his tone that made Lena's skin prickle. Not a threat. A fact. I need to go home, she said. You can barely sit up. I don't care. I need to. Pain flared in her ribs, cutting off the sentence. Lena gasped, pressing a hand to her side. Adrian stood and crossed the room. He moved like someone used to being obeyed. No hesitation, no wasted motion. He stopped a few feet from the bed. You have 3 cracked ribs, he said. A concussion, bruising across your back and shoulders. If you leave now, you'll collapse before you reach the street. I can't stay here. You don't have a choice. Lena glared at him. I always have a choice. Adrian's expression didn't change. Then choose not to be stupid. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Lena wanted to argue, to push back, but exhaustion was already dragging her down. Her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Fine, she said finally. One night. We'll see. Adrian turned and walked toward the door. Wait, Lena called. He stopped, glancing back. Thank you, Lena said quietly. For what you did. Adrian's expression flickered, something unreadable passing across his face. Get some rest, he said. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Lena lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced even as her body begged for sleep. She didn't know Adrian Cross, didn't trust him, didn't understand why he'd pulled her out of that alley or why he was letting her stay here. But as she drifted off, one thought lingered. He didn't look away. Morning came too bright. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through the window, slicing across her face like a knife. She groaned, rolling over, and immediately regretted it. Her ribs screamed in protest. Fuck, she muttered. The door opened. A woman stepped in. Older, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun. She carried a tray with a glass of water, a bottle of pills, and a plate of toast. Good morning, the woman said. Her voice was brisk, efficient. I'm Helen. I manage Mr. Cross's household. You need to eat, Helen interrupted. And take these. She set the tray on the bedside table and held out 2 pills. Painkillers. Doctor's orders. A doctor was here? Last night. You were asleep. Lena blinked. I didn't. You were exhausted. Mr. Cross insisted on a full examination. You're lucky. Could have been worse. Lena took the pills, swallowing them with water. Her throat was dry, raw. Where is he? Lena asked. Mr. Cross is working. It's 7 a.m. Helen's expression didn't shift. Mr. Cross is always working. She left the tray and exited without another word. Lena sat there, staring at the toast. Her stomach growled, but she didn't feel like eating. Everything felt surreal. Wrong, like she'd stepped into someone else's life. She forced herself out of bed, moving slowly, testing her body. The pain was bad, but manageable. She found a bathroom attached to the bedroom. Marble floors, a shower big enough for 3 people, towels that felt like clouds. She caught her reflection in the mirror and flinched. Her face was a mess. A bruise bloomed across her left cheekbone, dark purple edging into yellow. Her lip was split. Her eyes looked hollow. Lena touched the bruise gently and winced. This is what you look like now, she thought. This is what he made you. Marcus Thibault. The rage came fast and hot, burning through the fog of pain. He'd done this. He'd sent those men because she'd said no. Because she'd had the audacity to reject him. Lena gripped the edge of the sink, breathing hard. She wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to march into whatever mansion Marcus lived in, and what? She was nobody, a singer in a dying bar. He was rich, connected, untouchable. There was nothing she could do. Lena splashed cold water on her face and dried off carefully. When she returned to the bedroom, Helen was back, holding a set of clothes, soft gray sweatpants, a loose white t-shirt. These should fit, Helen said. Your clothes were unsalvageable. Lena took them. Thank you. Mr. Cross would like to see you when you're ready. Where? Downstairs. I'll show you. Lena dressed slowly, every movement a negotiation with pain. When she was done, she followed Helen out of the bedroom and down a hallway lined with dark wood and abstract art. The house, no, the penthouse, was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Everything was clean, modern, expensive. It felt more like a museum than a home. Helen led her to a large room that might have been a study. Bookshelves lined one wall. A desk sat near the window, sleek and black. Adrian stood behind it, reading something on his phone. He looked up when Lena entered. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Lena didn't move. "I need to go home." "No." "Excuse me?" Adrian set his phone down. "Those men were sent by Marcus Thibault. You know that, correct?" Lena's throat tightened. "I assumed." "Thibault is vindictive. You embarrassed him. He won't let that go." "So what am I supposed to do? Hide here forever?" "You're supposed to let me handle it." "Handle it how?" Adrian's gaze was steady, unblinking. "That's not your concern." Lena laughed, bitter and sharp. "Not my concern. It's my life. Which is why you're going to stay here until I say otherwise." "You can't just—" "I can." Adrian's tone didn't rise, but the steel in it was unmistakable. "And I will." Lena stared at him, fury boiling in her chest. "You don't own me." "No," Adrian said quietly, "but I'm the only reason you're still alive." The words landed like a slap. Lena opened her mouth to argue, to push back, but nothing came out. Because he was right. If he hadn't been there last night, she didn't want to think about what would have happened. "I have a life," Lena said finally, her voice shaking. "A job, an apartment. I can't just disappear." "Your apartment is a fourth-floor walk-up in Treme with a broken lock. Your job pays you in cash under the table. You have no family in the city." Adrian's expression didn't change. "You won't be missed." Lena felt something crack inside her. "Fuck you." Adrian didn't react. "Helen will bring you meals. If you need anything, ask her. The doctor will check on you tomorrow." "And if I just leave?" "You won't." "Why? You gonna lock me in?" "No." Adrian picked up his phone again, dismissing her. "Because you're smarter than that." Lena wanted to scream, wanted to throw something. Instead, she turned and walked out, her hands clenched into fists. The next 3 days blurred together. Lena stayed in the guest room, moving between the bed and the window. Helen brought her food. The doctor came and went. Adrian was a ghost. She heard him sometimes, moving through the penthouse, but he never came to see her. She tried to leave once, on the second day. Made it as far as the elevator before Helen appeared, calm and unbothered, and asked if she needed anything from the store. Lena went back to her room. She hated it, hated feeling trapped, hated the softness of the bed and the silence of the space, hated that her body was healing while her mind spun in circles. But most of all, she hated that a part of her, small, buried, stubborn, felt safer here than she had in years. On the fourth night, Lena couldn't sleep. She wandered out of her room, moving through the dim hallway. The penthouse was quiet, empty. She found herself in the main living area, staring out at the city lights. "Can't sleep?" Lena jumped. Adrian stood in the doorway holding a glass of whiskey. He was dressed down, black t-shirt, jeans. It was the most casual she'd seen him. "You scared the hell out of me," Lena said. "Sorry." He crossed the room and stood a few feet away, looking out at the same view. "Why are you doing this?" Lena asked. "Doing what?" "Helping me. Keeping me here." "You don't know me." Adrian took a sip of his drink. "I know enough." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Lena studied him. In the low light, his features were softer, less severe, but his eyes, those were still guarded, still distant. "Who hurt you?" Lena asked quietly. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Go to bed, Lena." "I'm serious. You don't do this." She gestured around the room. "Unless something broke you first." For a long moment, Adrian didn't respond. Then he turned to face her fully. "You want the truth?" he said. "Fine. I was 14 when my mother died. Overdose. My father was already gone. Prison, I think, but I never checked. I ended up on the streets, did things I'm not proud of to survive. By the time I was 20, I'd clawed my way into something resembling a life. And I learned one thing: people like Marcus Thibault only stop when someone makes them. Lena's breath caught. And you're going to make him stop? Yes. How? Adrian's smile was cold, humorless. You don't want to know. He finished his drink and set the glass down. Get some rest. Tomorrow we talk about what happens next. He walked past her, heading toward his own room. Adrian, Lena called. He paused. Thank you, she said. For telling me? He didn't answer, just nodded once and disappeared into the shadows. Lena stood there for a long time, staring at the place he'd been. She didn't trust him, not completely, but she was starting to understand him. And that somehow felt more dangerous than anything Marcus Thibault could do. Part 2 lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện, pha hồi thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch, sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ. Phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man. Nhân vật không hoàn hảo. Hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc. Không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí. Không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more 837. Part 2. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of rain against glass. Lena woke to gray light filtering through the curtains. Her ribs still hurt, but the sharp edge had dulled to a persistent ache. She could breathe without feeling like her chest might split open. Progress, she supposed. Helen knocked once and entered without waiting for an answer. Mr. Cross wants to see you, she said. Breakfast is ready. Lena sat up slowly. Does he always summon people like this? Only the ones staying in his home. Helen's expression remained neutral, but there might have been the ghost of a smile there. 10 minutes. She left, and Lena dragged herself out of bed. The face in the bathroom mirror looked slightly less destroyed today. The bruise on her cheek had faded from deep purple to a mottled yellow-green. Her split lip was healing. She looked like someone who'd been in a fight and lost, but at least she looked alive. She found Adrian in the dining room, sitting at a table that could have seated 12 but held only 2 place settings. He was reading something on a tablet, a cup of black coffee at his elbow. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit, he said. Lena pulled out the chair across from him and sat. A plate appeared in front of her. Eggs, toast, fruit. Helen moved like a ghost, there and gone before Lena could say thank you. Eat, Adrian said, still not looking up. You're very good at giving orders. I'm good at a lot of things. Lena picked up her fork. The eggs were perfect, soft scrambled, seasoned just right. She hated that they tasted good. Hated that this whole situation felt so normal when nothing about it was. Adrian finally set down the tablet and looked at her. In the gray morning light, his features were sharp, almost harsh. But his eyes, they were different today, less guarded, like he'd made some decision during the night and was waiting to see how she'd react. Marcus Thibault is having a party tomorrow night, Adrian said. Big event. Politicians, business owners, the kind of people who think money makes them untouchable. Lena's stomach tightened. So? So I'm going to be there. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what happens next. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Thibault thinks he can do whatever he wants. He thinks sending men to hurt you was just another Tuesday. He's wrong. What are you going to do? Make sure he understands that actions have consequences. The way Adrian said it, calm, measured, like he was discussing the weather, made Lena's skin prickle. You're going to hurt him, she said. I'm going to ruin him. There's a difference? Yes. Adrian picked up his coffee. Hurting him would be easy, satisfying even, but it wouldn't solve anything. Men like Thibault don't learn from pain. They learn from losing everything they've built. Lena stared at him. You're serious? I don't joke about things like this. And what am I supposed to do? Just sit here while you, what, destroy his life? Yes. That's insane. That's reality. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. You can't fight him yourself. You have no leverage, no resources, no protection. But I do. So you're going to let me handle this, and when it's done, you can go back to your life. Just like that. Just like that? Lena pushed her plate away. I don't want you to do this. Why not? Because, she stopped, trying to find the words. Because it makes me complicit. Because I don't know you. Because this whole thing feels wrong. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked city. 5 years ago, he said, a woman worked at one of my clubs. Her name was Nina. She was smart, hardworking, saving up to go back to school. One night, a man, someone with money and connections, decided he wanted her. She said no. He didn't like that. Lena's chest tightened. She ended up in the hospital, Adrian continued. Broken jaw, shattered orbital bone, internal bleeding. The man who did it walked away. No charges, no consequences. His lawyer made sure of it. What happened to her? She left the city. Last I heard, she was living with family in Atlanta, never came back. Adrian turned to face Lena. I didn't help her. I didn't even try. I told myself it wasn't my problem, that getting involved would cause more trouble than it was worth. I was wrong. So this is guilt, Lena said quietly. You're doing this because you feel guilty about her. I'm doing this because you're not going to be another Nina. The words hung between them, heavy and final. Lena looked down at her hands. They were shaking slightly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just trust me. I barely know you. Then get to know me. Before Lena could respond, Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. I have to go, he said. Helen will be here if you need anything. Where are you going? To work. He left without another word, and Lena sat alone at the table, staring at her half-eaten breakfast. The rain continued to fall outside, steady and relentless. She didn't know if she trusted Adrian, didn't know if what he was doing was right, or just another kind of violence wearing a different mask. But she knew one thing. She was tired of feeling helpless. The rest of the day dragged. Lena tried to read, but the words blurred together. Tried to watch TV, but nothing held her attention. She ended up back at the window, watching the city move below, cars and people and lives that had nothing to do with her. Around 4, Helen appeared with tea and a knowing look. You're restless, Helen said. I'm going crazy. That's normal. You've been through trauma. Your body's healing, but your mind needs something to do. What did you do? Lena asked. Before this, before working for him, Helen poured the tea with careful precision. I was a nurse, 20 years in the ER. Saw a lot of things. Too many things eventually. Why did you leave? Burnout. And I met Mr. Cross at the right time. He needed someone to manage his household. I needed a change. It worked out. He saved you too, Lena said. Helen's expression softened. In a way, but I also chose to stay. That's important. Did he tell you about Nina? He tells me very little about anything, but I know enough. Helen set down the teapot. Mr. Cross isn't a good man, Lena, but he's not a bad one either. He's something in between, and in this city, that's about as good as it gets. After Helen left, Lena thought about those words. Something in between. Not a hero, not a villain, just a man with scars who decided to do something about hers. That night, Lena couldn't sleep again. She wandered through the penthouse, careful and quiet. Adrian's door was closed, a thin line of light visible underneath. She heard voices. His voice, low and controlled, talking to someone on the phone. I don't care what it costs, Adrian was saying. I want everything. Financial records, property holdings, every loan, every debt. If he's hiding assets offshore, I want to know about it. A pause. No. I'm not interested in violence. I'm interested in exposure. Men like Thibault care more about their reputation than their lives. We take that? We take everything. Another pause, longer this time. Good. Have it on my desk by morning. The call ended. Lena heard movement inside the room and quickly retreated to the kitchen before he could find her eavesdropping. She was pouring herself water when Adrian appeared in the doorway. He wore sweatpants and nothing else, and Lena found herself momentarily distracted by the lean muscle of his chest, the faint scars that crossed his ribs. Can't sleep? He asked. Seems to be a pattern. Adrian moved to the counter, pulling out a bottle of whiskey. He poured 2 fingers into a glass and held it up in silent question. Lena nodded, and he poured a second glass. They stood in the dim kitchen, drinking in silence. I heard you on the phone, Lena admitted. I figured. You're really going after him? Yes. What if it doesn't work? What if he's too protected? Adrian's smile was thin, humorless. Everyone has vulnerabilities. Thibault's just better at hiding his than most. But they're there. I've been digging for 3 days, and I'm finding cracks. And then what? Then those cracks become breaks, and the breaks become a collapse. Lena took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down, warm and sharp. You've done this before. Not exactly like this, but close enough. Did it work? I'm still here. The people who came after me aren't. There was something dark in the way he said it, something that suggested the line between justice and revenge wasn't as clear as Lena wanted it to be. I need to ask you something, Lena said, and I need you to be honest. All right. Are you doing this for me, or are you doing this because you like it? Adrian didn't answer right away. He swirled the whiskey in his glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. Both, he said finally. I won't lie to you. There's a part of me that enjoys this. The hunt, the strategy, watching someone who thought they were invincible realize they're not. It's ugly, and I'm not proud of it. But it's the truth. At least you're honest. I try to be, about the things that matter. They finished their drinks in silence. When Lena set her glass down, Adrian was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. Most strong people don't. Before Lena could respond, he pushed off the counter and headed toward his room. Get some sleep, he said over his shoulder. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Lena stood alone in the kitchen, her heart beating faster than it should. She told herself it was the whiskey, told herself it was nothing, but she knew she was lying. The next morning came too fast. Lena woke to Helen shaking her shoulder gently. Mr. Cross asked me to give you this, Helen said, holding out a large box. Lena sat up, wincing at the protest from her ribs. What is it? Open it and see. Inside the box was a dress. Black, simple, elegant. The kind of thing that probably cost more than Lena made in 3 months. Why? You're going with him tonight, Helen said. Lena's stomach dropped. What? To the party. Mr. Cross insists. That's insane. I can't. He said you'd argue. Helen's tone was matter-of-fact. He also said to tell you that hiding won't solve anything. Thibault needs to see that you're not afraid, that you're protected. I am afraid. Then you'll have to pretend you're not. Helen left before Lena could argue further. She stared at the dress, her mind racing. Adrian wanted her to go to the party, wanted her to stand in the same room as Marcus Thibault, the man who'd tried to destroy her. It was reckless, dangerous, completely insane. She was still trying to decide what to do when Adrian knocked on her door an hour later. Come in, Lena called. He entered, dressed in a dark suit that fit him like it was made for his body, which it probably was. His hair was brushed back, his expression unreadable. You're not going, Lena said before he could speak. I'm going. The question is whether you're coming with me. This is crazy, Adrian. He tried to kill me. He tried to break you. There's a difference. Adrian crossed the room and stood in front of her. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to show him he failed. By wearing a fancy dress and smiling? By walking into that room like you own it? By showing every person there that Marcus Thibault doesn't control you? Lena shook her head. I don't know if I can do that. Yes, you can. You stood on stage and sang for people who didn't care. You survived an attack that should have killed you. You're still standing. That takes strength. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Lena looked at the dress, then back at Adrian. His expression was steady, patient, like he'd wait all day if that's what it took. If I do this, Lena said slowly, and something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. You can't promise that. I can promise that I won't let him hurt you again. There was something in his voice, a certainty that made Lena want to believe him. She thought about Nina, the woman who'd left the city because no one had protected her. Thought about all the other women who'd been hurt and silenced because they didn't have someone willing to fight back. Okay, Lena said. I'll go. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. Good. We leave at 7. The hours before the party passed in a blur. Helen helped Lena get ready, doing her makeup in a way that covered the worst of the bruising without looking obvious. The dress fit perfectly. Adrian must have guessed her size. Lena barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked like someone who belonged at a party full of rich people, someone confident, untouchable. It was a lie, but it was a convincing one. At 7, Adrian appeared at her door. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You look good, he said finally. I look like I'm playing dress-up. You look like someone Marcus Thibault is going to regret crossing. They took Adrian's car, a black sedan that probably cost more than Lena's entire life. The drive to the Garden District was quiet. Lena watched the city slide past, her hands clenched in her lap. Breathe, Adrian said without looking at her. I am breathing. You're holding your breath. I can hear it. Lena forced herself to exhale. What if he says something to me? He won't. He's not stupid enough to cause a scene at his own party. And if he does, then I'll handle it. The party was at a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. White columns, manicured lawns, valet parking. People in expensive clothes moved through the entrance in clusters, laughing and drinking champagne that probably cost more per bottle than Lena's rent. Adrian handed his keys to the valet and offered Lena his arm. She took it, trying to ignore the way her heart was hammering against her ribs. Stay close to me, Adrian said quietly. Don't engage with anyone unless I'm there. And if you need to leave, just say the word. Okay? They walked inside together and Lena felt every eye in the room turn toward them. Or maybe that was paranoia. Maybe no one was looking at her at all. The interior of the mansion was exactly what Lena expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art on the walls that probably belonged in museums. Servers moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet played in one corner. Adrian Cross, a voice called out to him. Didn't expect to see you here. A man approached, 50s, balding, wearing a suit that strained against his stomach. He smiled at Adrian with the kind of familiarity that suggested business deals and shared secrets. Charles, Adrian said, shaking the man's hand. Wouldn't miss it. Charles's gaze slid to Lena. And who's this? A friend, Adrian said smoothly. Lena, this is Charles Brennan. He owns most of the commercial real estate in the French Quarter. Pleasure, Lena said, forcing a smile. Charles looked like he wanted to ask more questions, but Adrian had already moved on, guiding Lena deeper into the crowd. Was that hard? Adrian asked quietly. Harder than it should have been. You did fine. They moved through the party, Adrian stopping occasionally to shake hands and exchange pleasantries. Lena stayed silent, observing. She noticed the way people looked at Adrian, with a mix of respect and wariness, like they knew he was dangerous but couldn't afford to ignore him. And then she saw him. Marcus Thibault stood near the bar, holding court with a group of men in expensive suits. He was laughing at something, his head thrown back, completely at ease, like he didn't have a care in the world, like he hadn't sent men to destroy her less than a week ago. Lena's breath caught. Her hands went cold. Adrian noticed immediately. His grip on her arm tightened slightly, not painful, just grounding. Breathe, he said again. He's right there. I know. He's acting like nothing happened. That's what men like him do. They pretend. But inside, he's worried. I made sure of it. Marcus's gaze swept across the room and landed on them. For a moment, his expression didn't change. Then recognition flickered in his eyes. followed by something darker. Surprise. Anger. Fear. He excused himself from his group and started walking toward them. Lena's entire body tensed. Adrian, I've got you. Just breathe. Marcus stopped a few feet away, his smile fixed but cold. Adrian, he said, I didn't know you were coming. Last-minute decision. Marcus's eyes moved to Lena. Up close, she could see the calculation behind his expression. He knew who she was, and he knew she shouldn't be here. And your friend? Marcus asked. This is Lena Hart, Adrian said. She works at one of my clubs. Is that so? Marcus's smile sharpened. Funny. I thought I recognized her. Didn't you used to sing at the Crescent Room? Lena forced herself to meet his gaze. I still do. Small world. Marcus took a sip of his drink. I hope you're enjoying the party. It's lovely, Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. You have a beautiful home. Thank you. I try to surround myself with beautiful things. The implication hung in the air, ugly and unmistakable. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena felt the shift in his energy, something cold and lethal sliding into place. Marcus, Adrian said, his tone pleasant but edged. I've been meaning to talk to you about a business matter. Oh? Yes. It's come to my attention that you've been expanding into new ventures, some of them quite aggressive. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. I don't know what you mean. I think you do, but we can discuss it later, in private. The two men stared at each other, and Lena realized she was watching something invisible play out. A war fought with words and implications, neither man willing to be the first to blink. Finally, Marcus stepped back. Of course, he said. Enjoy the party, Adrian, Miss Hart. He walked away, but Lena could feel his gaze on her back like a physical weight. I need to get out of here, Lena whispered. Not yet. He needs to see you stay. Needs to see that you're not running. I can't. 5 more minutes, then we leave. Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Lena smiled when she was supposed to, nodded when people spoke to her, pretended like her entire world wasn't tilting sideways. Adrian stayed close, his presence a constant reminder that she wasn't alone. When they finally left, Lena felt like she could breathe again. The cool night air hit her face, and she gasped, leaning against the car. You did well, Adrian said. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. How is any of this normal? Adrian opened the car door for her. Get in. Let's go home. The word hung in the air. Home. As if the penthouse was hers, as if she belonged there. Lena got in the car without arguing. She was too tired to fight anymore. The drive back was quiet. When they reached the penthouse, Helen had already gone to bed. Adrian poured them both a drink without asking, and they sat in the living room, staring out at the city. He knows, Lena said finally. He knows you're coming for him. Good. Let him know. What happens now? Now he makes a mistake. They always do when they're scared. Lena looked at Adrian, studying his profile in the dim light. Do you ever get tired of this? The games, the manipulation? Every day. Then why do you keep doing it? Adrian turned to face her, and for the first time Lena saw something raw in his expression, something unguarded. Because if I stop, he said quietly, then men like Thibault win. And I can't let that happen. They sat in silence, the weight of the night settling around them. Lena knew she should go to bed, should try to sleep, but she didn't want to be alone. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. Do you have anyone? Someone who knows you, really knows you. Adrian was quiet for a long time. Then he shook his head. No, he said. I don't. That sounds lonely. It is. Lena didn't know what made her do it. Maybe it was the whiskey. Maybe it was the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Maybe it was just the need to feel something other than fear. She reached out and took his hand. Adrian looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face. He didn't pull away. Thank you, Lena said. For tonight, for all of this. You don't have to thank me. I do. Because no one else would have done what you did. They stayed like that for a while, hands linked, neither of them speaking. Outside, The city glittered and moved, indifferent to their small moment of connection. Eventually, Lena stood, still holding his hand. "Come on," she said. "Where?" "To bed, not—" She felt her face heat. "I mean, to sleep. I just don't want to be alone tonight." Adrian studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. They walked to Lena's room together. She climbed into bed and Adrian sat in the chair by the window, the same place he'd been that first night. "You can come closer," Lena said. "I won't bite." A ghost of a smile crossed Adrian's face. He moved to the edge of the bed, sitting with his back against the headboard, careful not to touch her. Lena closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she felt safe enough to sleep. Just before she drifted off, she felt Adrian's hand brush against her hair. So gentle, she might have imagined it. But she didn't think she did. Part 3. Lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện. Pha hối thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phủ. Phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cảm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyện. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Chotomore 840. Part 3. Lena woke to sunlight and the distant sound of voices. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory rushed back. The party, Marcus's cold smile, Adrian's hand in hers. She turned her head and found the space beside her empty, the sheets cool to the touch. He'd left some time during the night. She sat up slowly, testing her ribs. The pain was less now, more of a dull throb than the sharp agony it had been. Healing, her body, at least. The voices were coming from downstairs. Lena pulled on a robe and moved into the hallway, following the sound. She stopped at the top of the stairs when she recognized Adrian's voice, low and controlled. "I don't care if he's calling in favors. I want the report finished by noon." A pause. "No, we're not waiting. Every hour we give him is another hour he uses to cover his tracks." Lena descended the stairs quietly. Adrian stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, staring at something on his computer screen. He looked like he hadn't slept, shirt rumpled, hair disheveled, shadows under his eyes. "Good. Send it directly to me. And make sure—" He turned and saw Lena in the doorway. "I'll call you back." He ended the call and set the phone down. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you." "I slept enough." "Liar." Adrian's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Coffee?" "Please." They moved to the kitchen. Helen wasn't around yet, so Adrian made the coffee himself, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. He handed Lena a cup and leaned against the counter. "What were you working on?" Lena asked. "T-Bolt, following the money." "Find anything?" "More than I expected." Adrian took a sip of coffee. "He's not as careful as he thinks. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, shell companies registered in Delaware, payments to people who don't officially exist. It's a mess, and it's all connected." "Connected to what?" "Everything. Real estate fraud, tax evasion, bribes to local officials. The man's built his empire on a foundation of lies and payoffs, and now it's about to collapse." Lena felt a chill run through her. "When?" "Soon. I'm meeting with someone this afternoon, a journalist. She's been investigating T-Bolt for months but couldn't get enough evidence to publish. I'm going to give her everything." "And then what happens?" "Then the story breaks. His reputation crumbles. The people he's paid off will distance themselves before they get dragged down with him. And without protection, the authorities will finally have the courage to act. It sounded so simple when Adrian said it, clinical. But Lena knew there was nothing simple about destroying a man's life, even if he deserved it. "What about the men he sent after me?" Lena asked quietly. Adrian's expression darkened. "They're being handled." "What does that mean?" "It means they won't be a problem." "Adrian, you don't want the details, Lena. Trust me." She did trust him, and that was the problem. She trusted a man who spoke about ruining lives and handling problems with the same casual tone most people used to discuss dinner plans. "I need to go back to work," Lena said suddenly. Adrian frowned. "Not yet. It's been almost 2 weeks. I can't hide forever." "You're not hiding, you're recovering." "I'm going crazy sitting here doing nothing. I need to sing. I need to feel normal again." "Normal doesn't exist anymore. Not after what happened." Lena set her cup down too hard, coffee sloshing over the rim. "Stop telling me what I can and can't do. I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I'm not your prisoner." "I never said you were." "Then let me go back to my life." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me," he said when someone answered. "I need security at the Crescent Room. Starting tonight. 2 people, minimum, good ones." A pause. "I don't care what it costs, just make it happen." He hung up and looked at Lena. "You can go back to work," he said. "But you don't go alone, and you don't leave without telling someone where you're going. Those are my terms." "I don't need a babysitter." "You need to stay alive, take it or leave it." Lena wanted to argue, but she could see the set of his shoulders, the steel in his eyes. This was as far as he'd bend. "Fine," she said. "I'll take it." That night, Lena stood backstage at the Crescent Room for the first time in 2 weeks. The familiar smell of cigarette smoke and spilled beer washed over her, and something in her chest loosened. This was home. Broken and fading, but home. Corey appeared from behind the bar, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Look who's back from the dead," he said, pulling her into a careful hug. "Thought we lost you." "Can't get rid of me that easy." "You look good. Better than I expected." "Makeup does wonders." Corey's smile faded. "I heard what happened. Some of it, anyway. Those men—" "It's handled," Lena said quickly. "I don't want to talk about it." He nodded, understanding. "You sure you're ready to be back?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The crowd that night was bigger than usual. Word had spread that Lena was performing again. She saw faces she recognized, regulars who'd been coming for years. But she also saw the 2 men Adrian had sent, young, professional, wearing dark suits that screamed security. They stood near the exits, watching everything. Lena took the stage at 9. The spotlight hit her face, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. Her hands shook, her throat closed up. Then she opened her mouth and sang. The first note came out rough, uncertain, but the second was stronger. And by the third she was back, not the same as before, but something different, something deeper. She sang about loss and survival, about breaking and rebuilding. The words poured out of her like blood from a wound, raw and necessary. The crowd was silent. Even the drunk stopped talking. When she finished the first song, the applause came thunderous and real. Lena felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Thank you," she said into the microphone. Her voice cracked slightly. "It's good to be home." She sang 3 more songs, then took a break. Backstage, she found Adrian waiting. He shouldn't have surprised her, but he did. "You came," Lena said. "I wanted to hear you sing." "And? You're good. Better than I expected." "Thanks, I think." Adrian stepped closer. "You were scared up there." "How did you know?" "I could see it, but you did it anyway." Lena looked down at her hands. They were still trembling slightly. "I kept thinking about that night, about the alley. I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. But you did." "Yeah." She met his eyes. "I did." Something passed between them, an understanding that didn't need words. Adrian reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "You're stronger than you think," he said. Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have come back." Her blood went cold. Adrian saw her expression change. "What is it?" Lena showed him the phone. His jaw clenched, and he immediately pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. "It's him," Lena whispered. "It has to be." "We don't know that." "Who else would it be?" Adrian didn't answer. He was already calling someone, his voice low and urgent. Lena heard fragments. "Trace this number, and I want a location now." One of the security guards appeared at Adrian's shoulder, speaking quietly. Adrian nodded and turned back to Lena. "We're leaving," he said. "I have another set." "Not tonight. Come on." He took her hand and led her out through the back. The car was waiting, engine running. They climbed in, and the driver pulled away before Lena could even get her seatbelt on. "This is insane," Lena said. "It's just a text." "It's a threat, and threats escalate." "You're overreacting." Adrian turned to face her, his expression hard. "The last time someone threatened you, you ended up in a hospital bed. I'm not taking chances." Back at the penthouse, Adrian paced while Lena sat on the couch, her mind spinning. Helen appeared with tea, gave Adrian a look that said, "Calm down," and disappeared. "We need to accelerate the timeline," Adrian said, more to himself than to Lena. "The story needs to break tomorrow." "Is it ready?" "It'll have to be." Lena watched him move, sharp, controlled, dangerous. She'd seen him calm, seen him careful. But this was different. This was a man who'd decided to go to war. "Talk to me," she said. Adrian stopped pacing. "What?" "You're spiraling. Talk to me." "I'm not spiraling. I'm planning." "You're angry." "Of course I'm angry. He threatened you." "He's been threatening me since this started. Why is this different?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Because you're not supposed to be part of this," he said quietly. "You were supposed to stay safe while I handled it. But he keeps pulling you back in, and I can't—" He stopped, jaw working. "I can't let him hurt you again." Lena felt something shift in her chest. "Adrian, I know what you're going to say, that I'm too invested, that this is about more than just protecting you, and you're right, but I don't care." "What are you saying?" Adrian turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "I'm saying that somewhere between pulling you out of that alley and watching you sing tonight, this stopped being about revenge. It became about you." Lena's heart hammered. "That's a bad idea." "I know." "We barely know each other." "I know." "You're dangerous. Your whole life is dangerous." "I know that too." "Then why—" Adrian reached out and cupped her face with one hand, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "Because you make me want to be less dangerous," he said. "And I haven't wanted that in a very long time." Lena should have pulled away, should have reminded him, and herself, that this was complicated and messy and bound to end badly. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. It was tentative at first, careful, like they were both testing the waters. Then Adrian's hand slid into her hair, and the kiss deepened, becoming something urgent and necessary. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "This is a terrible idea," Lena whispered. "Absolutely. We should stop." "Probably." Neither of them moved. Adrian stood abruptly and walked to the window, putting distance between them. Lena watched him, her lips still tingling. "I need to focus," Adrian said, his back to her. "T-Bolt is making moves, and I can't afford to be distracted." "Right, of course." "Once this is over, you don't have to explain. I get it." Adrian turned, and the look on his face was something between regret and longing. "No, you don't, but you will." He left the room before Lena could respond, and she sat alone in the silence, touching her lips and wondering what the hell she'd just done. The next morning, Lena woke to chaos. Helen knocked on her door at dawn, her usually composed face tight with tension. "You need to come downstairs," Helen said. "Now." Lena threw on clothes and followed her. Adrian was in the living room, surrounded by laptops and phones. The TV was on, tuned to a local news station. Oitbashi im Barmars. Breaking story this morning as documents leaked to the press reveal extensive financial fraud tied to real estate developer Marcus Thibault. Our sources indicate that federal investigators have already begun. Lena stared at the screen. Marcus's face filled it. A professional headshot that made him look respectable, trustworthy. The irony wasn't lost on her. It's happening, Adrian said without looking away from his computer. The story went live an hour ago. Every major outlet has picked it up. What about Marcus? No comment from him yet, but his lawyers are scrambling. As if on cue, Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and smiled, cold and satisfied. It's the journalist, he said. He answered. Talk to me. Lena watched his expression as he listened. His smile grew. Good. Keep pushing. Don't let them bury this. He hung up and looked at Lena. Federal agents are at Thibault's office. They're seizing records. Just like that? Just like that. Once the evidence is public, they can't ignore it. Too many eyes watching. Lena should have felt relief. Victory, even. But all she felt was a strange numbness. What happens to him now? She asked. Depends on what they find, but at minimum, he's ruined. No one will do business with him. The properties he owns will be seized. He'll spend the rest of his life fighting legal battles he can't win. And the men he sent after me? Adrian's expression hardened. They've already been dealt with. One's in custody, charged with assault. The other left the state yesterday. He won't be back. How do you know all this? Because I make it my business to know. There it was again, that reminder that Adrian wasn't just some businessman. He was connected, powerful, dangerous in ways Lena was only beginning to understand. The rest of the day was a blur of news updates and phone calls. Adrian barely left his office. Lena tried to stay out of the way, but the walls felt like they were closing in. By evening, the story had exploded. Politicians were calling for investigations. Thibault's business partners were issuing statements distancing themselves. His empire was collapsing in real time, broadcast across every screen in the city. Lena found Adrian on the balcony, staring out at the city as the sun set. He looked exhausted. You won, she said quietly. We won. No, this was you. I just survived. Adrian turned to face her. Surviving is winning, Lena. Don't forget that. They stood in silence for a while, watching the sky turn purple and gold. What happens now? Lena asked. Now you decide what you want. What do you mean? You're safe. Thibault can't touch you anymore. You can go back to your life, your apartment, your job, whatever you want. Lena's chest tightened. And if I don't want to go back? Adrian's expression was carefully neutral. Then you stay. Just like that? Just like that. Lena thought about her tiny apartment with the broken lock, about singing to empty rooms for tips that barely covered groceries, about the life she'd been living before everything changed. I don't know what I want, she admitted. That's okay. You don't have to decide tonight. But Lena felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her anyway. Stay or go. Safety or freedom. Adrian or herself. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Always. Do you regret it? Any of it? Adrian considered the question. No. Thibault deserved what he got. Maybe worse. That's not what I meant. Do you regret getting involved with me? Adrian stepped closer, his hand coming up to brush her cheek. Never, he said. Not for a second. Lena's breath caught. Adrian, I know, it's complicated, but I need you to know that whatever you decide, I won't regret this. Before Lena could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. I have to take this, he said. It's about Thibault. He stepped inside and Lena was left alone on the balcony, her mind racing. She'd come so close to losing everything, her voice, her life, her sense of self, and Adrian had given it all back to her. Not perfectly, not without scars, but back nonetheless. The question was, what did she owe him for that? And more importantly, what did she owe herself? Inside, she heard Adrian's voice rise, sharp, angry. What do you mean he's gone? Lena's stomach dropped. She rushed back inside. Adrian's face was pale, his knuckles white around the phone. Find him, he said. I don't care what it takes. Find him, and let me know immediately. He hung up and looked at Lena. Marcus left the city, he said, 2 hours ago. Private plane to somewhere without an extradition treaty. Can he do that? He just did. But the investigation will continue. But without him here, it'll take months, maybe years. And by then, he'll have moved his money, changed his identity, disappeared. Lena felt the rage building again. So he gets away with it. Not entirely. His life here is over. But he's not going to prison. Not anytime soon. That's not good enough. Adrian's expression was grim. I know, but it's what we've got. Lena wanted to scream, wanted to throw something. Instead, she stood there, shaking with anger and frustration. I want him to pay, she said quietly. He will, eventually. You don't know that. No, but I have to believe it. They stood in the silence of Adrian's penthouse, two people bound together by violence and survival, and Lena realized something. This wasn't over. Marcus might have run, but the damage he'd caused, the scars he'd left, those were still here. And somehow she and Adrian would have to figure out how to live with them. I'm not leaving, Lena said suddenly. Adrian looked at her. What? I'm not going back to my apartment, not yet. I need... She stopped, trying to find the words. I need to figure out who I am now, after all this. And I can't do that alone. You want to stay here? Is that okay? Adrian's expression softened. Yeah, it's okay. Lena crossed the room and took his hand. It was becoming a habit, this reaching for him when the world felt too heavy to carry alone. We'll figure this out, she said. Together. Adrian squeezed her hand. Together. And for the first time since the night in the alley, Lena felt like maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. Part 4. Louis. Viết sao nghìn đến sao nghìn năm Trump to liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện, và hối thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ. Phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc, kể theo ngôi thứ ba, giữ độ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu, được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật, không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Showmore 8 giờ 42 phút, Part 1. The weeks that followed felt like living in two worlds at once. In one world, Lena returned to the Crescent Room 3 nights a week, singing to crowds that grew larger with each performance. Word had spread, not about what happened to her, but about the raw intensity she brought to the stage now. People came to hear the girl who sang like she had something to prove, like every note was a fight she refused to lose. In the other world, she came home to Adrian's penthouse, where they circled each other like planets caught in gravity, close enough to feel the pull, careful not to collide. It was a Tuesday morning when everything shifted. Lena woke to find Adrian already gone, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the envelope on the kitchen counter with her name written across it in his sharp, precise handwriting. Inside was a key and a note. The apartment next door. It's yours if you want it. No strings, just space to breathe. Lena stared at the key, her throat tight. She'd been staying in Adrian's guest room for almost a month now, and while he'd never made her feel unwelcome, she knew it couldn't last forever. But this, offering her a place of her own while keeping her close, felt like something more than simple kindness. It felt like he was trying to give her what she needed before she even knew to ask for it. Helen appeared in the doorway, reading glasses perched on her nose. He's been working on that for 2 weeks, Helen said. Had the place completely renovated. New furniture, new everything. Why didn't he tell me? Because he thought you'd argue, say it was too much. Lena laughed, bitter and surprised. It is too much. Maybe. But when has that ever stopped him? Helen poured herself coffee and sat down at the counter. For a moment, the two women just looked at each other. Can I ask you something? Lena said. You can ask. I might not answer. Does he do this often? Take in strays? Helen's expression softened. You're not a stray, Lena. You're the first person in 5 years he's let get close to him. The first person who's made him want something other than revenge and control. That's what scares me. Good. You should be scared. Love always starts with fear. Who said anything about love? Helen just smiled and left the kitchen, her footsteps echoing down the hall. Lena sat alone with the key in her hand, thinking about what Helen had said. Love. The word felt too big, too complicated. But something was happening between her and Adrian, something that went beyond gratitude and protection, something that kept her awake at night, wondering what would happen if she let herself fall. She found Adrian in his office that evening, surrounded by papers and laptop screens. He looked up when she entered, his expression guarded. You found it, he said. Lena held up the key. You should have told me. Would you have said yes? I don't know. Maybe. That's why I didn't ask. Lena crossed the room and sat on the edge of his desk. You can't just make decisions for me, Adrian. I wasn't making a decision. I was offering an option. An option that cost you how much? Does it matter? Yes. Because I can't afford this, any of this, and I don't want to owe you. Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her face. You don't owe me anything, Lena. The apartment is there if you want it. If you don't, that's fine too. But either way, it's not a transaction. Then what is it? It's me trying to give you what you need. Space. Independence. A place that's yours. Lena felt her defenses cracking. Why? Because you deserve it. Because I want you to stay, but not because you feel trapped. The honesty in his voice undid her. She reached out and took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Thank you, she said quietly. For the apartment. For everything. Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Does that mean you'll take it? Yeah, I'll take it. Something in his expression eased, and Lena realized he'd been more nervous about this than he'd let on. The great Adrian Cross. Afraid she might say no. Can I see it? She asked. Now? Why not? Adrian stood, still holding her hand, and led her out of the office. They walked down the hall to a door Lena had assumed was a closet or storage. Adrian unlocked it, and they stepped into a space that took her breath away. The apartment was smaller than Adrian's penthouse, but still larger than anywhere Lena had ever lived. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture was modern but warm, nothing cold or sterile. There was a piano in the corner by the windows. Lena walked over to it, running her fingers across the keys. You play? Adrian asked. A little. Taught myself when I was a kid. Then it's yours. Lena pressed down on middle C, and the note rang out clear and true. She felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. This is too much, she said. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Adrian came to stand beside her. What if I told you it's not enough? That I'd give you more if I could? Lena turned to face him. Why are you doing this? I think you know why. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Lena's heart hammered as Adrian reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm not good at this, he said quietly. The feelings part. I've spent most of my life avoiding it. So have I. But with you, I don't want to avoid it. I want... He stopped, jaw working. I want to try. Lena's breath caught. Try what? This. Us. Whatever this is. That's a terrible idea. Probably. We're going to hurt each other. Maybe. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Adrian's hand cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing her bottom lip. Then we'll go slow. As slow as you need. Lena closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a mistake, that getting involved with Adrian Cross would only lead to more pain, but the rest of her, the part that had been alone for so long, wanted this more than she wanted to breathe. Okay, she whispered. We can try. Adrian kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious that might break. And maybe she was. Maybe they both were. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Lena moved into her new apartment but spent most of her time in Adrian's space. They ate breakfast together when his schedule allowed. He came to her performances at the Crescent Room, always sitting in the back, always watching. They didn't talk about what they were to each other, didn't put labels on it, but everyone who saw them together knew. Corey mentioned it one night after Lena's set. "So you and the boss," he said, wiping down glasses. "That's really happening." Lena felt her face heat. "It's complicated." "Always is with men like him." "What's that supposed to mean?" Corey set down the glass and looked at her with kind, worried eyes. "Just be careful, Lena. Adrian Cross is a good man in a lot of ways, but he's also dangerous. And dangerous men don't stop being dangerous just because they care about someone." "I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" The question haunted Lena as she drove back to the penthouse that night. Did she know what she was doing, or was she just trading one kind of danger for another? She found Adrian on the balcony, smoking a cigarette, something she'd never seen him do before. "Didn't know you smoked," she said. "I don't, usually." He took a drag and exhaled slowly. "Bad habit from when I was younger. Only comes back when I'm stressed." "What's wrong?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he stubbed out a cigarette and turned to face her. "Thibault's dead." Lena's world tilted. "What?" "They found him in Buenos Aires this morning. Apparent suicide, single gunshot to the head." "Oh my God." "The authorities are calling it self-inflicted. Said he left a note confessing to the fraud charges." Lena sank into one of the balcony chairs, her legs suddenly weak. "Do you believe that?" Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters." "Why?" "He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore. Isn't that what we wanted?" "Not like this. I wanted him to face justice, to answer for what he did. Not—" She stopped, bile rising in her throat. "Did you have something to do with this?" "No." "Adrian, I said no, Lena. I wanted him ruined, not dead. There's a difference." "Then who?" Adrian shook his head. "Could be anyone. Thibault made a lot of enemies, someone he owed money to, someone he crossed. Or maybe it really was suicide. Men like him don't handle losing well." Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Adrian had nothing to do with Marcus's death. But doubt crept in anyway, cold and insidious. "I need you to look at me," she said. Adrian met her eyes. "Swear to me you didn't do this. That you didn't have him killed." "I swear. On everything I have, I didn't touch him." Lena searched his face for any sign of deception and found none. She wanted to feel relief, but all she felt was empty. Marcus Thibault was dead, and she didn't know how to feel about it. "Come here," Adrian said quietly. Lena stood and let him pull her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of him, expensive cologne and something darker underneath. "It's over," Adrian murmured into her hair. "Really over now." But Lena wasn't sure, because even with Marcus gone, the damage remained. The scars, the fear, the night she still woke up gasping from nightmares of that alley. "I don't feel any different," she whispered. "You will. Give it time." Lena wanted to believe him, but time felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. The news of Marcus's death hit the papers the next morning. The story painted him as a corrupt businessman who'd taken the coward's way out. No mention of the men he'd sent to hurt Lena. No mention of the other women he'd probably destroyed along the way. Just another rich man who'd fallen from grace. Lena threw the paper in the trash and tried not to think about it. She threw herself into her music instead. Started writing new songs. Darker, more honest ones about survival and scars. The Crescent Room became her sanctuary, the only place where she felt like herself. One night, a man in an expensive suit approached her after her set. "Miss Hart? My name is David Chen. I'm a talent scout for Meridian Records." Lena's heart skipped. Meridian was one of the biggest independent labels in the country. "I've been watching your performances for the past month," Chen continued. "You have something special, raw, authentic, the kind of voice that could fill stadiums if given the right opportunity." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we'd like to offer you a recording contract. Nothing is guaranteed, but we think you could be something big." Lena stared at him, her mind reeling. A recording contract, a real chance at a music career. This was everything she'd ever wanted. "I need to think about it," she said. Chen smiled and handed her a business card. Of course, take your time. Call me when you're ready to talk details. After he left, Lena sat backstage, holding the card like it might disappear. Corey found her there 20 minutes later. You okay? He asked. Someone just offered me a record deal. Shit, that's huge. Yeah. You don't sound happy. Lena looked up at him. I am, I think. It's just, everything's changing so fast. A month ago, I was barely surviving. Now I have an apartment, a relationship with a man who terrifies and fascinates me in equal measure, and a possible music career. It doesn't feel real. Maybe that's the point. Maybe your real life is just starting. Lena wanted to believe that, wanted to think that all the pain and fear had led somewhere worth going. She told Adrian about the offer when she got home. He was in the kitchen, making tea, a new habit he'd picked up because Lena preferred it to coffee at night. That's incredible, he said, genuine warmth in his voice. You're going to take it, right? I don't know. What if I'm not ready? You're ready. You've been ready for years. You just didn't have the opportunity. Lena took the cup of tea he offered. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you try again. But you won't know unless you take the chance. When did you become so wise? Adrian's smile was soft, almost vulnerable. I'm not wise. I just know what it looks like when someone's too scared to reach for what they want. And I don't want that for you. Lena set down her cup and crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He held her close, and for a moment they just stood there in the quiet of the kitchen. I'm scared, Lena admitted. I know. Not just of failing, of losing this. Us. Adrian pulled back enough to look at her. Why would you lose us? Because if I take this deal, everything changes. I'll be traveling, recording, doing press, and you have your life here, your businesses. How do we make that work? We figure it out, together. What if it's not enough? Adrian cupped her face in his hands. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. But don't give up something you want because you're afraid of what might go wrong. That's no way to live. Lena kissed him then, deep and desperate, like she could pour all her fear and hope and love into him through touch alone. Adrian responded with equal intensity, backing her against the counter. Bedroom, Lena gasped between kisses. Which one? Yours, now. They barely made it. Clothes came off in a trail through the penthouse. When they finally fell into Adrian's bed, it was all heat and hunger, and the desperate need to feel something other than fear. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Lena's head on Adrian's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. I'm going to take the deal, she said quietly. Good. And I'm going to need you to be patient with me, because I'm going to mess this up. Us. I'm going to get scared and pull away and probably hurt you. Adrian's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. I know, and I'm going to do the same to you, because I'm not good at this either, but we'll figure it out. Promise? Promise. Lena closed her eyes and let herself believe him. The next morning, she called David Chen and accepted the offer. They scheduled a meeting for the following week to go over contracts and discuss recording plans. Lena felt like she was floating, untethered from reality. Adrian celebrated by taking her to dinner at the nicest restaurant in the city. They sat by the window, overlooking the Mississippi River, and Lena realized this was the first time they'd been out together in public as a real couple. People stared. Of course they did. Adrian crossed dining with the girl from the Crescent Room. The gossip would be all over the city by morning. Does this bother you? Adrian asked, noticing her discomfort. A little. I'm not used to being looked at like this. Like what? Like I'm something scandalous. Like I don't belong here. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. You belong anywhere you want to be, and anyone who thinks otherwise can go to hell. Lena laughed despite herself. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. You're talented, beautiful, and stronger than half the people in this room. If they can't see that, that's their problem, not yours. Lena squeezed his hand. Thank you. For what? For making me believe that, even when I don't believe it myself. They finished dinner and walked along the river, Adrian's arm around her shoulders. It was a warm night, the air thick with humidity and the smell of magnolias. Lena felt something settle in her chest, a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. Always. When you sing, what do you think about? Lena considered the question. Pain, mostly. Everything that's happened, everything I've survived. I turn it into something people can hear and feel. Does it help? Sometimes. Other times it just reminds me of what I've lost. Adrian was quiet for a moment. What did you lose? The person I was before. The girl who thought the world was basically good. Who believed that hard work and talent were enough. Lena stopped walking and looked up at him. She's gone. And I don't know if I miss her or if I'm glad she's dead. You're not dead, Lena. You're just different. And different isn't always bad. How do you know? Because I used to be someone else too. Someone angrier, more violent. Someone who only knew how to survive by destroying everything around him. Adrian's expression was distant, haunted. That person is still in here somewhere, but he's not all of who I am anymore. You helped me see that. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. We're a mess, aren't we? Yeah, but we're a mess together. They walked back to the penthouse hand in hand, and Lena felt something shift inside her. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not forgetting the pain, but learning to carry it differently. Not alone, but with someone who understood. The recording session started 2 weeks later. Lena spent her days in the studio, working with producers who actually understood her vision. They didn't try to change her voice or make her sing pop songs she hated. They let her be raw, honest, real. The album they were building felt like a diary of her survival, each song a chapter in the story of how she'd been broken and rebuilt. Adrian came to the studio when he could, sitting quietly in the back while she worked. Sometimes she'd look up and catch him watching her with an expression that made her heart ache, pride and longing, and something deeper that neither of them had named yet. One afternoon, after a particularly emotional session, Lena found him waiting outside the studio. How'd it go? He asked. Good. Hard, but good. She leaned against him, exhausted. I recorded the song about the alley. Adrian stiffened slightly. How was that? Brutal. I cried twice, but I got through it. I'm proud of you. Lena looked up at him. Do you want to hear it? Are you sure? Yeah, I think I need you to hear it. They went back into the studio, and Lena played him the rough cut. Her voice poured through the speakers, raw and aching, singing about darkness and violence, and the man who'd pulled her back from the edge. When it finished, Adrian was silent for a long moment. That's about me, he said finally. Parts of it. Lena, you saved my life, Adrian. How could I not write about that? Adrian's jaw worked. I don't feel like a hero. Good. Because you're not. You're just a man who decided to give a damn when no one else would, and that's enough. Adrian pulled her close, and Lena felt him trembling slightly. She realized he was crying, silent tears that he probably didn't even know he was shedding. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Not the money or the power or the reputation. Just me. Lena held him tighter. Thank you for the same thing. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other together in the dim light of a recording studio. And Lena thought maybe this was what love looked like. Not perfect or easy, but real. Messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. Part 5. Lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện, pha hồi thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phủ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man. Nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo. Phần 5 giải quyết hết vấn đề và kết thúc trọn vẹn câu chuyện. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dẫn bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí. Không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép, hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show More 845. Part 5. The album dropped 6 months later on a Tuesday in October, and Lena's world exploded overnight. She'd expected some attention, maybe a few reviews, some radio play if she was lucky. What she got was a tidal wave. Critics called it the most honest debut they'd heard in years. The lead single, the one about surviving the alley, went viral on streaming platforms. By the end of the first week, Lena had sold 50,000 copies. By the end of the month, she was on the cover of 3 music magazines. This is insane, Lena said, staring at her phone as notifications flooded in. She was curled up on Adrian's couch, wearing one of his shirts, and trying to process the fact that her face was currently on a billboard in Times Square. Adrian looked up from his laptop. "It's what you deserve." "I don't know about that." "I do." Lena set her phone down and crawled across the couch to him. He closed the laptop and pulled her into his lap, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Are you happy?" he asked. Lena thought about the question. 6 months ago, she'd been terrified, broken, barely holding herself together. Now she had an album, a career, and a man who looked at her like she hung the moon. But happiness felt complicated, layered with guilt and grief and the constant awareness that her success had been built on trauma. "I think so," she said honestly, "but it's weird, like I'm waiting for something to go wrong." "That's normal. You've been through hell. Your brain is still catching up." "When does it catch up?" "I don't know. I'll let you know when mine does." Lena laughed and kissed him. "We're quite a pair." The best kind of mess. The tour announcement came a week later. 20 cities over 3 months, starting in January. Lena's label wanted to capitalize on the album's success while the momentum was hot. It was everything she'd ever dreamed of. It was also terrifying. "I'll come with you," Adrian said when she told him. "For the whole tour." "Why not? I can work from anywhere." "Adrian, that's 3 months. You can't just abandon your businesses." "I'm not abandoning anything. I have good people running things, and I have technology." He pulled her close. "Besides, you think I'm going to let you do this alone? I won't be alone. I'll have a band, a manager, a whole team. You know what I mean." Lena did know. And the truth was, she didn't want to do it without him. The thought of being on the road, in strange cities, sleeping in hotel rooms alone, it made her chest tight. "Okay," she said, "come with me." "Yeah?" "Yeah. But you have to promise not to go all overprotective and controlling. I need to be able to do this on my own terms." Adrian's expression was serious. "I promise. This is your thing, Lena. I'm just along for the ride." They sealed it with a kiss that turned into something more, and Lena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. The holidays came and went in a blur of preparation. Lena rehearsed until her voice was raw, worked with her band until every song felt perfect. Adrian handled logistics, booking better hotels than the label had arranged, making sure she had everything she needed. Helen fussed over both of them, making sure they ate properly and got enough sleep. On Christmas Eve, the 3 of them sat in the penthouse, drinking wine and pretending everything was normal. "You nervous about the tour?" Helen asked Lena. "Terrified." "Good. Means you care. What if I freeze up there? What if I can't do it?" "Then you'll figure it out," Helen said simply. "You've survived worse than stage fright." Lena thought about the alley, about Marcus, about all the nights she'd sung to empty rooms and kept going anyway. Helen was right. She'd survived worse. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said to Adrian, "and I need you to be honest. Always. Are you doing this because you want to, or because you're afraid to let me go?" Adrian set down his wine glass, his expression thoughtful. "Little bit of both, if I'm being honest. I want to support you, want to see you succeed, but yeah, there's a part of me that's terrified of losing you." "You're not going to lose me. You don't know that. You're about to become a star, Lena. Your life is going to change in ways neither of us can predict. So is yours. You're choosing to come with me instead of staying here, running your empire. My empire will be fine. You're more important." The words hit Lena harder than she expected. "Don't do that. Don't make me more important than your own life." "Why not?" "Because that's how people get lost. That's how resentment builds. Adrian reached for her hand. Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. We'll check in with each other, be honest about what we need, and if it stops working, we'll figure that out too. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's worth trying. Helen watched them with an expression that might have been approval or might have been concern. You two are either going to make it or destroy each other. I haven't decided which yet. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Lena said dryly. I call it like I see it, but for what it's worth, I'm rooting for you. The tour started in Atlanta on a cold January night. Lena stood backstage, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She could hear the crowd, 2,000 people who'd bought tickets to see her. Her. You're going to be amazing, Adrian said, appearing beside her. I'm going to throw up. Do that after. Right now, you're going to go out there and show them what you're made of. The stage manager gave her the signal. Lena took a deep breath and walked out into the lights. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force. She stood there for a moment, overwhelmed, then stepped up to the microphone. Hey, she said, her voice amplified across the venue. I'm Lena Hart, and I've got some songs to sing for you. She started with the softest one, building slowly. By the third song, she'd forgotten her fear. By the fifth, she was lost in the music, in the connection between her voice and the faces looking up at her. When she sang the alley song, the one that had started everything, the crowd was silent. You could hear people crying, and when she finished, the applause was deafening. Lena looked out into the crowd and saw Adrian standing near the sound booth, watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Pride, yes, but also something like awe. After the show, she was flying. That was incredible, her manager said, pulling her into a hug. You killed it. It felt good, really good. Adrian appeared and Lena threw herself into his arms. Did you see that? She asked, breathless. Did you see them? I saw. You were perfect. I wasn't perfect. I missed a note in the third song, and I stumbled on the bridge of... Adrian kissed her, shutting her up. You were perfect to them, and that's what matters. The tour rolled on, city after city, venue after venue. Some nights were better than others. Some nights, Lena's voice cracked from exhaustion. Some nights, the crowd was small or disinterested, but most nights, it was magic. Adrian kept his promise. He stayed in the background, didn't interfere, didn't try to control anything. But he was always there, waiting in the wings, bringing her tea for her voice, holding her when she crashed after shows. They fought sometimes. The stress of the road, the constant travel, the lack of privacy, it all added up. There was a night in Chicago when Lena accused him of smothering her, and Adrian walked out of the hotel room. He came back 3 hours later, and they talked it through, apologized, promised to do better. There was a night in Denver when Adrian got a call about a problem with one of his clubs, something that required his immediate attention. He flew home for 3 days, and Lena realized how much she'd come to depend on his presence. When he came back, she clung to him like he might disappear again. I missed you, she admitted. I was gone for 3 days. I know, but everything felt wrong without you here. Adrian kissed her forehead. I missed you too, more than I should have. What does that mean? It means I'm in too deep, and I don't know how to pull back. Do you want to? No, but it scares me. The intensity of this. Lena understood. It scared her too, the way they'd become tangled up in each other, necessary to each other's functioning. It wasn't healthy, probably, but it also felt inevitable. By the time they reached San Francisco, the halfway point of the tour, Lena was exhausted but exhilarated. The shows were selling out. Her album had gone gold. She was getting interview requests from major publications. She was becoming everything she'd ever wanted to be, but she was also losing pieces of herself. The privacy, the anonymity, the ability to walk down a street without being recognized. It was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. One afternoon, she and Adrian walked through Golden Gate Park, and a group of fans spotted her. They were sweet, excited, asked for photos and autographs. Lena obliged, smiling and gracious. But afterwards, she felt drained. Is it always going to be like this? She asked Adrian. Probably. Maybe worse, depending on how big you get. I don't know if I want that. Then you get to decide how much of yourself you give. You're in control, Lena, not them. It doesn't feel like I'm in control. Adrian stopped walking and turned to face her. Then take it back. Set boundaries. Say no when you need to. Don't let them consume you. That's easy for you to say. You've always been good at walls. Yeah, and look how well that worked out for me. I spent 15 years alone because I was too afraid to let anyone in. You don't want that life, trust me. Lena knew he was right, but finding the balance between openness and self-preservation felt impossible. The tour ended in New Orleans, full circle back to where it all started. The venue was the Sanger Theater, a historic place that could hold over 2,000 people. It had sold out in minutes. Lena stood on that stage, looking out at faces she recognized. Corey from the Crescent Room, Helen sitting in the front row, other musicians she'd played with over the years, and Adrian, always Adrian, watching from the side. "This is home," she said into the microphone. "This is where I learned to sing, where I learned to survive. And I wouldn't be here without the people in this room who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." She sang every song like it was the last time she'd ever perform, poured everything she had into the music, the words, the emotion. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Backstage, she collapsed into a chair, shaking. "That's it," her manager said, grinning. "That's the end of the tour. You did it." Lena felt tears streaming down her face. "I did it." Adrian knelt in front of her, wiping her tears with his thumbs. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." The after-party was at one of Adrian's clubs, the nice one in the Warehouse district, not the Crescent Room. Everyone was there. Band members, crew, label executives, friends. The champagne flowed, and Lena found herself laughing until her sides hurt. But eventually, she needed air. She slipped out onto the balcony and found Adrian already there, staring out at the city lights. "Hiding from your own party?" she asked. "Needed a minute. You?" "Same." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. "What happens now?" Lena asked. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. The label wants another album, wants to do a bigger tour next year, Europe, maybe Asia." "And what do you want?" Lena thought about it. "I want to keep singing, but I also want a life. Want to be able to breathe without feeling like I'm being watched all the time." "You can have both. You just have to be intentional about it." "What about us? What do we do now?" Adrian turned to face her fully. "I've been thinking about that." Lena's stomach dropped. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least, I hope it's not." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Lena's heart stopped. "I'm not proposing," Adrian said quickly, seeing her expression. "Not yet. But I want you to know that I'm in this, completely. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, this is here." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, white gold with a single diamond. "Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that you're it for me. You're the person I want to build a life with, however that looks." Lena felt tears burning her eyes. "You're such an idiot." "Probably. I love you." It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. Adrian's expression cracked open. "Yeah? Yeah, I love you. Even though you're complicated and damaged and sometimes you drive me crazy." "Right back at you." Lena laughed through her tears. "So what do we do now?" "Now we figure it out. Together. One day at a time." "That's it? That's your big plan?" "That's the plan. No roadmap, no guarantees, just us, figuring it out as we go." Lena took the box from his hand and looked at the ring. It was beautiful, simple, perfect. "I'm not ready for this yet," she said honestly. "I know. But I will be. Someday. I'll wait." She closed the box and handed it back to him. "Keep it safe for me." Adrian pocketed the box and pulled her close. They stood on the balcony, wrapped in each other, while the party continued inside. "I'm scared," Lena admitted, "about the future, about losing this." "Me too. But we're going to try anyway?" "Yeah, we're going to try anyway." 6 months later, Lena was in the studio working on her second album. It was coming slower this time, harder. She didn't have the same well of pain to draw from anymore. She was happy, mostly. healing. And it turned out that happiness was harder to write about than trauma. "This is shit," she said, crumpling up another page of lyrics. Her producer, Marcus, no relation, thank God, laughed. "It's not shit, it's just different. It's boring. It's honest. And honesty is never boring." Lena wasn't convinced, but she kept working. The songs that emerged were quieter, more contemplative. Less about surviving and more about learning to live after survival. Adrian came to the studio most days, working on his laptop in the corner. He'd sold 2 of his clubs and was focusing on the businesses he actually cared about. He was also doing something Lena had never expected: therapy. "How's it going?" she'd asked after his first session. "Weird, hard," the therapist asked about my childhood, and I nearly walked out. "But you didn't." "No, I stayed. Figured if you can sing about your trauma in front of thousands of people, I can talk about mine in front of one." It wasn't perfect. They still fought sometimes, still triggered each other's fears and insecurities. But they were trying, actively working on being better for each other. The Crescent Room closed that spring. The building was too old, too broken to save. Lena sang there one last time, a private show for the regulars who'd supported her from the beginning. Corey cried. So did she. "End of an era," Corey said afterward, hugging her tight. "Yeah, but a good one." "You're going to be okay, kid. Better than okay. So are you. What are you going to do now?" Corey shrugged. "Maybe retire. Maybe find another bar. Haven't decided yet." 2 weeks later, Adrian offered him a job managing one of his upscale clubs. Corey accepted, on the condition that he could play whatever music he wanted. "Deal," Adrian said, and they shook on it. Lena's second album came out in November, almost exactly a year after the first. It was different, softer, more mature. Some fans loved it. Some said she'd lost her edge. Lena didn't care. She'd made the album she needed to make, and that was enough. The tour this time was smaller, more intimate. Theaters instead of arenas. She wanted to see faces, to connect with people, not just perform at them. Adrian came to some shows, but not all. They'd learned that they needed space, needed their own lives outside of each other. It was healthier this way, even if it was harder. On a cold December night in Boston, Lena finished a show and found Adrian waiting backstage with champagne and roses. "What's this for?" she asked. "Your album just went platinum." "What? When?" "About an hour ago. Your manager called." Lena set down the roses and threw her arms around him. "Holy shit! Holy shit indeed!" They drank the champagne in her dressing room, talking about nothing and everything. Somewhere in the conversation, Adrian pulled out the ring box. "Is this still a no?" he asked. Lena looked at the box, then at Adrian, at the man who'd saved her life, who'd helped her rebuild, who'd loved her through all her jagged edges. "Ask me," she said. "What?" "Ask me. For real this time." Adrian's expression shifted. Surprise, hope, fear. He got down on one knee, right there in the cramped dressing room, and opened the box. "Lena Hart, will you marry me?" "Yes?" The word came out sure and steady, no hesitation. Adrian's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen on him. He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. "When did you get my ring size?" Lena asked. "Helen helped me, months ago." "You've been planning this?" "Hoping for it." "There's a difference." Lena pulled him up and kissed him, deep and certain. "I love you, even though you're a pain in the ass. I love you too, even though you're stubborn and impossible. We're going to drive each other crazy." "Absolutely. But we're going to do it together until the wheels fall off." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at City Hall. Just them, Helen, Corey, and a handful of close friends. Nothing elaborate or public. Just a quiet promise between two people who'd learned that love didn't fix everything, but it made the broken parts easier to carry. Lena wore a simple white dress. Adrian wore a suit. They wrote their own vows. "I promise to love you even when it's hard," Lena said. "To tell you the truth even when it hurts. To give you space when you need it and hold you close when you don't." "I promise to protect you without controlling you," Adrian said. "To support your dreams even when they scare me. To keep trying to be better than I was yesterday." They exchanged rings, kissed, and that was it. Married. The reception was at Adrian's club, now Corey's club, technically. They danced to jazz music, drank too much champagne, and Lena sang one song for Adrian that she'd written just for him. It was about second chances, about two broken people finding each other in the dark, about building something real from the wreckage of pain. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "That was beautiful," Adrian whispered when she came back to him. "You're beautiful." "I'm really not." "You are to me." They left early, escaping to the penthouse that was now officially theirs, both of them, no more separate apartments. Just one shared space where they could be messy and real and themselves. That night, lying in bed, Lena thought about how far she'd come, from that alley where she'd almost died to this moment, married to a man she loved, with a career she'd built from her own broken pieces. It wasn't perfect. She still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched at unexpected touches, still struggled with the weight of public attention, but she was here, alive, fighting, singing, and that was enough. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked, his arm around her waist. "How lucky I am." "That's a strange word for what you've been through." "Maybe, but I'm lucky because I found you, because I survived, because I get to keep doing this." Adrian kissed her temple. "I'm the lucky one. We can both be lucky." "Deal." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and Lena dreamed of stages and spotlights and a voice that refused to be silenced. 2 years later, Lena stood on the stage at the Grammy Awards, holding a golden gramophone for Best New Artist. She looked out at the audience, at Adrian sitting in the front row, at the thousands of faces watching, and she thought about that girl who used to sing in a dine bar for tips. That girl was still in her somewhere, scared, scrappy, surviving. But she was also this woman now, strong, successful, still standing. "Thank you," Lena said into the microphone, her voice steady. "To everyone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. To the people who pulled me out of the dark and reminded me what light looked like. This is for you, all of you." She held up the Grammy, and the applause washed over her like a wave. Backstage, Adrian pulled her into his arms. "I'm so proud of you," he said. "We did this together." "No, you did this. I just got to watch." Lena kissed him, tasting salt from tears she didn't remember crying. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe. But you would have found a way. You always do." They went home that night, Grammy in hand, and sat on their balcony overlooking the city. Lena thought about everything that had brought them here. The violence, the fear, the slow rebuilding of broken pieces. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Adrian. "Getting involved with me. All the complications." Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. "Not once. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "Even with all the mess?" "Especially with the mess. The mess is what makes it real." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you." "I love you too." They sat like that as the city lights flickered below them. Two survivors who'd found each other in the darkness and built something that looked like light. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no perfect ending, no moment where all the pain disappeared and everything became easy. But it was real. It was theirs. And it was enough. Lena thought about the girl she used to be, the one who stood on that small wooden stage at the Crescent Room, singing to empty chairs and hoping someone would listen. That girl had survived, had fought, had refused to disappear. And this woman she'd become, scarred and strong and still learning how to carry all of it. She was still singing, still here, still fighting. And that, Lena realized, was the real victory. Not the Grammy or the platinum albums or the sold-out shows. Just this. The choice to keep going. To keep singing. To keep loving despite the fear that it might break her all over again. Because breaking and healing were part of the same story. And hers was far from over.